Thank you, guys, and thank you for joining us here today. Jimmy and I will be presenting a smarter, safer way to power TRUs on electric standby. As was mentioned before, at any point in time you have a question, no question is out of bounds. Please type it up. Jimmy and I both are looking at the questions to see if we can help you. And that's the whole reason we're here, is to help you through this process. So Jimmy's been with Purkeys a long time. I've been with him about 5 years. Jimmy's been with him, plus 20?
20, yeah,
right?
20, 25 years. So, yeah, currently sales application engineer for Purkeys.
Yeah, so technical questions, certainly Jimmy's here to help with that, as I am as well. But let's go ahead and get started. We're just going to talk about what we're going to talk about today. We're going to give you a brief introduction, talk about some of the regulations, and of course the benefits. The reason you guys are here is what's going to benefit your fleet, and then a standby checklist, what you guys will need to get started with this. But big question, why use electric standby? And the biggest reason I can come up with is money. It's going to save your fleet money to run electrically versus diesel fuel. We got a calculator. We're going to come through that and work through that with you. But yeah, so electric standby equals lower costs and quieter operations. We've had a number of fleets get in touch with us, and I'll just talk about a quieter operation inside the cities, Washington, D.C., New York City. They can't load after 10 o'clock at night. I think Jimmy has a customer that actually had that situation. So electric standby is going to run a lot quieter. And of course, as I mentioned before, the savings that you have money-wise, you're eliminating that diesel engine running the whole time you're sitting there at the dock. So you're going to reduce fuel and maintenance expenses. You're going to meet those noise requirements. And it runs off the power that you already have there at your dock.
Yeah, noise is a big one for, a lot of the fleets have come to me, and just kind of the added benefit was the fuel savings. But yeah, when you get, some of these fleets got residential areas moving in, and getting the cops called on them constantly just because of the noise, and just, kind of overall, just everybody's happier when it's quieter.
That's right. It only takes a few of those fines to go through to really add up to your loading costs as well when
Yes.
they start fining you for those noise ordinances. So certainly, I know that's your customer that had that specific. A couple of my customers who just came down to money. It just makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So as we're talking about money, let's talk about what it costs to run your truck at the dock right now with diesel fuel costs the way they are, and then of course what it is based upon the electric piece of it. We have this calculator on our website, so you can obviously plug in your own numbers. This is a generic number piece here, but it is up to date and it is realistic. Maybe if you're in California, you're paying a little bit more than kilowatt per hour, but then you're also paying a lot more diesel per hour. But as this goes through, you're looking at, your diesel costs about $3.73 per gallon a day, and a typical reefer runs at about 3/4 of a gallon an hour there. So, you're looking at about $2.80 an hour to run that diesel. If you take that by the 5 hours that you have it parked and running, maybe you run them 8, maybe you run them 4, but just for 5 hours a day, taking into account the 300 or 260 days that you would be running during the year, you're looking at about 3,637 per hour per year, which at a fleet of 15 trailers, you're looking at about a cost of $54,551. Did I say that right, Jimmy?
Yep, you said it right. And yeah, you say
it sounded like I kind of melded that together, but okay.
It's a lot of numbers. But...
Yeah. So yeah, your fleet of 15, that's what you're spending in diesel, 54,000 and some change. With the electric, cost per kilowatt per hour is about 18 cents an hour. And then with that consumption, you're looking at about 5.1 kilowatts, which your cost per hour is 0.92. So you're spending 92 cents an hour for that kilowatt energy. There again, 5 hours at the dock. Could be 8, depending on your load, but we just took a conservative approach to this. 260 days at 1,300 hours per year, that's costing you $1,196. Your fleet of 15 trailers that we just talked about, that cost is going to be $17,940. So what that equals to is $37,000 saved per year. And again, or let me just say this, we were conservative on these numbers. So these are a conservative estimate. You're maybe paying more for fuel, you may be paying more for kilowatt, but this calculator is available to you. You can see there is savings there. The other side of it, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to say that, those savings can be even higher, with solar, if you had solar power on your facility side. So
sure.
That's just an added benefit there.
Yeah, so we have a noise benefit, we have a fuel benefit, we have other benefits as well. But the big one of why fleets go in this direction, it's just going to save you money.
Yeah,
it's going to hit that bottom line. Your trucks are going to run for less money, and that's what this helps with. Number one, but the other piece to it is that you got reduced engine maintenance. So that diesel motor, while it's running, obviously is chewing up. The alternator chewing up a lot of the electrical components there. So what we're taking away is that diesel engine running. So you're talking about 5 hours a day times 260 days. You're taking 1,300 hours off of your reefer unit. And I'm sorry, Jimmy, what's a typical reefer unit? What's the lifespan of a reefer unit in hours?
Oh, shoot.
I'll put you on the spot.
Yeah, you did kind of put me on the spot. It varies.
Well, so it varies, but now we're taking 1,300 hours a year
off of that.
Yeah. So you're extending the life of that reefer unit, and those are expensive as well. So that maintenance cost is a big piece there. And then, of course, the downtime that goes along with it, getting a diesel mechanic to work on it. We're saving all of that with using the electric piece to it.
Yeah, and also one other thing is to look at it is, resale value. That's another way to look at it too. Less engine hours could greatly increase the resale value of that reefer unit or that whole trailer combined.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So, and the other piece that is big in our society nowadays too is that the carbon footprint that's leaving. We're talking about reduced emissions and improved air quality. 1 gallon of diesel fuel puts about 22 pounds of CO2 into the air, which global reefer pollution equals 5 million tons of CO2 into the air. We're taking a big chunk of that out by running it electrically. You're not putting that CO2 out there, just a cleaner, safer, and you can get into as your fleet runs cleaner and safer, and there's grants and those things available to you from the government because they want it to be cleaner. So there's some savings there that you'd have to investigate yourself. But I know in a couple of my customers, there has been some monies available through the power companies for that. So another piece to make sense.
And to add to that, we're not saying we're totally eliminating emissions because obviously it's going to transfer over to the grid and there's still going to be some there, but the efficiencies on that side are much, much better.
Sure.
And with added, if you had the renewable energies like solar, it's going to greatly reduce that on the grid side.
Well, I would think similarly to the $37,000 we save, we're also saving that much emissions as well, almost at the same ratio. So, yeah. So why use electric standby? Obviously, we just mentioned about this to comply with local noise ordinances. You don't want to get taxed by the local government with fines that way. You got quieter truck stops, quieter distribution centers, and reduced ventilation loads in those distribution centers. So just it makes a lot of sense all the way around.
A lot of big cities now too they've got people are actually paying people to tell on people that are idling. So there's other violations too.
Yeah, that's right. And we know that there's CARB laws out there, and Jimmy's going to get into that in a little bit, what those regulations are, but that's ever changing. So get on board now because it's always going to be changing in that direction. So So brings us to our first poll question. We're going to see what everyone's paying attention here, but it says, what are the benefits of a reefer with electric standby? So each of you there watching and listening, go ahead and answer this question. You got A, it's reduced fuel consumption and exhaust emissions. B, it's carb compliant. C, lengthen the lifespan of your reefer unit. Or D, all of the above. And carb compliant, those are those regulations that we talked about. Jimmy's going to go into a little bit more detail about, but those are the local ordinances and regulations. So take a few minutes and answer that question for us, please.
So it looks like we got 60% have submitted their answers.
Let's see if we got the right answers here. All of the above. That's exactly right. Very good, guys. Yeah, it handles all of those issues there. Reduce fuel consumption, emissions, carb compliant, and it will lengthen the lifespan of your reefer unit. Congratulations. Well done. Jimmy's going to speak to us about some of those regulations we talked about.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. So we've all heard this over and over. I'm just going to actually read it here. What fleets thought was coming as far as these carb regulations. Regulation on TRUs, as well as other refrigerated trailers, truck bodies, and transport containers. No TRU will be able to idle without connecting to shore power within 15 minutes of arriving at any facility. All facilities will have the geofencing that will track the comings and goings. And obviously the idea is to reduce those emissions and the state's carbon footprint. So that's what we thought was coming. And that's what we all, kind of worked towards and prepared for. But in reality, there's no federal mandate for electric standby. But that plug-in use is encouraged, obviously, to cut the emissions and the noise. There still may be some non-federal or regional rules that may still apply. And of course, California and other states continue to put that pressure to reduce that idling. But really, fleets choose how they want to comply, whether that's with diesel upgrades, plug-in, shore power, hybrid, or just full electric. But that growing push towards plug-in readiness, like Bob mentioned, the grants and those facility upgrades. So, and really, honestly, the grid's not capable of handling it, especially in like the California area. But the drive is there, and eventually we'll get there. So we got to be ready for it. So realized benefits and some fleet feedback, because that's what everybody wants to hear is what's the feedback. So there are some, operational pain points. Obviously, idling, you're burning fuel, and that's money. We're talking that 4 to 5 hours, when that reefer's parked, at a facility or out in the yard, burning approximately a gallon of fuel. Excessive idling time increases the maintenance cost, noise, and environmental impact. We kind of already went over, the maintenance costs on the reefer. Some facilities require yard personnel. That's kind of a pain. I mean, you have to have an actual person to hire a person to do it. And a lot of the reasons why they do that is, for one, make sure they are connecting and getting all the benefits of running on electric. But two, make sure you got to protect your asset. That stuff's not cheap. And, it's something new. It's kind of out of the norm for a driver to unplug. So some fleets actually hire a person to do it.
Yeah, and we have this guy listed here. This is our buddy Rodney. We call him Rodney. Actually, is a real person from one of my customers. They were using electric standby. They they implemented the idea and they went to electric standby, and they were having their drivers plug and unplug the reefers. But what they were doing is they put their plug on the back of the truck, and then they would just pull the trailer out when they took off. So much like pulling your light at your house out, the truck would go and it would just release. Well, they were finding they were getting all kinds of arcing issues, and we'll talk about that in just a minute or two about what it does to the plug when you're just disconnecting. So when their truck would disconnect, it would cause arcing issues, it cost them a lot of money. So what the idea they came up with is they're going to have Rodney go out and unplug the drivers. So a driver pulls into the dock, he has to wait for Rodney to plug him in. And then when he gets done loading and unloading, then Rodney's got to come out, and they got to wait for Rodney to come out and unplug him. So drivers very frustrated waiting for Rodney because Rodney doesn't move that fast, and he's got other people that see, and they got to wait there in their truck in order for Rodney to get there. So and had these locks on their shore power, so it was really a big hassle. So our auto eject system fixed some of that for them, and we'll talk about our auto eject system in a little bit more detail. But yeah, getting to the personnel piece, some companies they've got to have a guy plug and unplug them.
Yeah, they're nervous too. I mean, that's high voltage, 480 volts, 240 volts.
Yeah.
It makes fleets nervous when having drivers even mess with that. So
certainly.
Some key risks and concerns, kind of briefly mentioned, but drive offs. That's a big one. It's out of the norm for a driver to get out and have to unplug something, when they're backed up to a dock. The high voltage safety and arcing, causes damage to the connectors. That's big. When you're disconnecting 480 volts, it could produce some pretty good sparks.
Yeah, just look at this picture here where a driver has driven off, and now you've got live wires there. And let's say that was sitting in a puddle of water, or let's say our buddy Rodney came back to in that area. It's going to be bad for Rodney. It's going to be bad for a driver. It's going to be bad for your company all the way around.
Yeah. Infrastructure varies. That's a big thing. When I've gone in and installed, our SAFEX system at different facilities, a lot of them are different. Could be 240, could be 208. I've seen 208 as far as voltages. But they're not all wired the same. And, we'll kind of go more into the checklist here at the end, but you got to make sure the grid's able to handle it, especially when you have multiple bays that have the shore power with multiple trailers connected at the same time. Kind of some real world savings and benefits of using SAFEX. So now we're going to dive in more to what we have to offer as far as a shore power solution. Currently, we have one fleet saving roughly $40 in fuel every 8 hours of loading, which is about $10,400 annual savings per truck per year. Reduced connector damage. One fleet spent $700 a year on burnt connectors. That may not sound like much, but when you add downtime to that, that's a lot. Because it's not a quick fix to replace connect. Downtime is huge.
And that burnt connector piece was coming from being pulled out, from the shore power not cutting off, but just taking the plug out. You have arcing that happens in that issue. And these are just the connectors that burn up. So a pretty cheap replacement, but enough of them to where he added up to $700 a year. And what happens when that plug's not working? You can't load up there. You got to wait to get your electrician out there to go ahead and fix that. So that downtime is a big piece to that. It's not just $700 a year. It's the downtime. It's the frustration. It's all of that.
Yeah.
And you can see from this video, this is kind of how our system works, so that drivers, we don't have to wait for Rodney to come unload us. Drivers hit the air brakes like they always have to do, and our system ejects, and it's off the ground, and it's a lot safer piece. And that was
And we
my
can
customer
use,
as well that gave me that $10,000 annual savings. That's the information they gave me. They said, "Hey, man, this is a no-brainer. We're saving about $5 an hour." And when they told me that, I go, $5 an hour? But you multiply that out by the time that they load, that's 10,000 a year, as we have stated there. That pays for the unit almost 5 times over. So that's unbelievable ROI on that.
yeah, and you can see in the video here that, you know, we're releasing the brakes on the trailer to trigger that auto eject. But it could be, you know, it could be any 12-volt signal on that trailer. You know, we can pick it up off the 7-way when the, you know, brake is pushed. This is just one method of doing it that we have seen to be the most effective method, because that's something they do every time before they leave that dock, is they release the brakes. So now we're going to kind of dive into, you know, kind of what you need to know if you're going to implement something like this, and what we've seen since we, you know, first got into shore power for TRUs. It really kind of tends to be an all or nothing. You know, the more bays you have, the more, you know, standby utilization. Again, you have to have the trailer side as well. So, you know, if you don't have all the trailers outfitted with the receptacle portion of it, you don't get the full benefit. You know, that you're not going to be able to plug in that trailer when it's backed into that dock with a, you know, shore power capabilities. You must assess power availability and grid capacity. Kind of talked about that earlier. You know, the more bays you have with shore power, the more capacity you're going to need. I know there's companies out there that can help with that. TMC, Technology and Maintenance Council, is a really good resource for those that have, you know, heard about it. There's currently recommended practices being written for how to set up a facility. It's a really good resource that I suggest you looking into. But it requires a lot of coordination with your utility provider. Make sure they can tell you that, you know, if you can handle it. Your electrical contractors, your reefer OEMs, your trailer OEMs, as far as the installation of the shore power system.
And keep in mind, when you're talking about your utility provider, there are tax savings available through your utility provider for setting something like this up. I can only speak for where I've been, but Georgia Power is one of those companies that they give you a tax break if you can set something like this up. So worth looking into wherever you are in the United States to see what's available to you, because there's free money there.
Yeah, and, you know, say consult with your TRU OEMs, and make sure you fully understand their warranty policies, because it's got to be a benefit not running that diesel engine. Obviously, there's still going to be some wear and tear on the electric side, but not near as much as it would be on that diesel engine. So make sure you fully understand that with your reefer provider. Okay, so now we're going to go into our next poll question. So what is the average fuel consumption of a reefer? Just making sure we're all paying attention. We'll give you a few seconds here to answer. Oh no, hopefully we didn't lose everybody, Bob, because there we go. There's one person.
There we go. I know the answer to this. I hope.
I'll give a few more seconds. We've got about 40%.
I'm seeing we're like a slide behind too. See, these telling us there's a little delay, but
Oh, okay. So I'll wait a few more seconds.
yep.
All right, so I'll go ahead and move on to the answer. And if you guess three
Oh
quarters of a
yeah.
gallon of fuel per hour, you guessed correct. And that's just kind of what we've uh, gathered from the industry and what we've gathered from fleets. So yeah, we'll move on to SAFEX benefits.
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. So we're going to speak there again about our system a little bit more because of the benefits that it provides. Um, it's a pretty intuitive system. One of the things that I found and that my customers have found, if you look at the box on the far right side, it's just a clean look. It's you can tell when it's connected, the button shows up connected, and of course there's a disconnect button there. Some other systems, didn't light up as well, didn't show as well, not nearly as impressive. But as we talked about before, you're able to, the driver's able to plug in when he's there. According to that left picture that you see, there's a nice little blue light that shows he's connected there, so he knows I'm connected. He goes over, punches the connect button, and then both those blue lights are up. And the moment that he steps on or he hits the air brakes, it disconnects from the power source and then it ejects, as we saw in that video before. So that's the big difference there that makes it safer, makes it a little bit more intuitive, and I think it's just a cleaner piece.
And you can hit that, if it's not connected to that trailer, you can hit that connect button all day long. It's never going to latch and stay closed.
That's right.
So that's the big safety piece of it, is no one can go in there and touch the end of that receptacle and get hit with 480 volts.
That's right. And if that receptacle were to lay in water, which again, Florida, Georgia, in the southeast where I'm at, there's a lot of water around. It's already disconnected. It's not a live wire at that point. So that's a big difference. So, and then of course we go into how these are staged. If you look, this is another one of my customers, by the way. If you look at the picture on the right, that's how their shore power was set up before. Talking about, and I have another customer in Florida, as a matter of fact, that has that kind of switch, that box. I don't know if that's on or off right now. I don't know. As a matter of fact, I did a tour with the guy. He showed me his facilities, and we went to the box, and I said, "Can you tell me if that's on?" And he said, "No, it's on right now. Why is this thing on?" He got all upset, because there was juice flowing to the end of that wire. Our box is a lot cleaner, and you can tell whether it's on or off. The other piece about this picture on the right, one of the issues that they had, and that drivers weren't using this, one, because they were scared of it. They didn't know if it was on or off. But every time they picked it up, a bunch of ants would be in the connector because it was warm, and they would sit in there, and drivers wouldn't touch this thing because there's so many ants.
Good old fire ants too, huh?
Yeah, fire in North Carolina, it's fire ants. So yeah, that's exactly right. So you want something that's useful to the driver. You want something that they feel comfortable with. Obviously, the box on the right, not comfortable for them at all. They just wouldn't use it. So they weren't getting any savings. They weren't getting any emissions control, whatever it may be. So that's versus what we have on our side. We have a cable management to keep the cords off the ground. Not that, it wouldn't harm anything to have them on the ground. There wouldn't be power to it, as we just mentioned, but it's a better look. It stays off the ground. Got driver confidence. They feel better knowing that they can approach that and see whether it's on or off. You have it's a little bit more consistent in the training. Hey, drivers, this is what you do. And they're able to train up a little bit better. And of course, the safety piece of it. You're not endangering someone with 480 volts or 240 volts, or with fire ants for that matter.
Every dock, every dock or even yard, mainly just the dock side, they're all different. With my experience, going with just the standard Purkeys autosafe, and I really had to spend a lot of time in watching trailers pulling in and out, um, and making sure the angle was proper on pull out. And but long story short, every dock is different, and we've had experience with a lot of different ones, and can really help fine tune the final setup.
Yeah, you bring up a pretty good point, Jimmy, that we're very creative too. It doesn't always have to be that particular setup that you see there. We can work with some extensions, or we can work with some expansions where the spring pulls back, and we did some adjustments. I remember the first one I set up, we had to do some adjustments on the spring tension to make sure it was doing what we needed to do. So we're going to work with you on that. If you guys decide you want to move forward with it, we're going to have one of our guys out there and walk you through it hand in hand, step by step. So that's another piece that we provide. We're not just going to send you a box and say, hey, put it on the wall. We're going to be there to be with you on it. So we talked about some of those arcing issues. And in here we have a picture of a plug that has arced. When you don't have the power turned off and you're pulling that plug out by hand, or if the truck's pulling away, there's going to be an arc that happens there. And it's going to cause some problems at those ends. There again, this is one of my customers that had $700 a year worth of arcing issues just with those plugs being pulled out. And then again, the downtime that goes along with that. So we remove that potential for driver error with the unplug. And we also remove that arcing issue, because the minute that driver hits the air brakes, it disengages. The power's off, the blue light's cut off. Then the worm gear pushes the plug out, and it's out and safe. So as you can see from these pictures, you have some connector damage when guys are just tugging on them, or guys are pulling them out, or as I mentioned before, these trucks that just pull away from the dock. So we're eliminating all of that with our system there.
And just to make sure to clear another thing up as well, it doesn't have to be auto ejected to kill that power. If you were to walk up and just manually, pull that plug out of the receptacle on the trailer, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to kill that power, before it has a chance to arc. So the anti-arcing still applies if you manually remove it. And a lot of fleets may, that's going to be their recommended, is to still manually remove that plug. But the auto eject really helps protect, if that doesn't happen.
Yes. So what you're saying is some fleets may train, hey, remove the plug, and the auto eject kind of acts as a safety net in case they forget to do that.
Correct.
Yeah. Nice. Much what we talked about, and it's just another video of how this works. This is with one of my customers. Getting back to what I talked about before, you see the two boxes there in the video. You can kind of see one's got a really clean look to it, and you can tell where the power button is. The other one, you don't necessarily know whether it's on or off. And so it's another proof in the pudding there. But our system eliminates that driver error by turning the system off and ejecting the plug before they get going down the road. So a huge piece to keep your drivers safe, to keep your investment safe in your truck and in your plugs and whatnot.
And you saw that was a 240 volt system. That any of the blue ones, that denotes it's 240, and the red is 480.
Oh yes, sir. Yep. And there again, we're able to modify that to whatever your warehouse, is able to do. So, all right, Jimmy, I'll let you run down the history of how we even came up with this auto eject system.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. So yeah, the auto ejecting system, it's been around and trusted for over 25 years, mainly in the fire and ambulance. You can see here we have 200, I think it's over that now, 250,000 plus fire and ambulance vehicles over the past 25 years. In an emergency application like this, they got to get in and go. So you can see in that right video, little video clip there, that's a 110, shore power plug. So they plug in and, either charge or power any of the onboard appliances or devices. But when they get in, they need to go. They're not worried about unplugging. That particular one is it's a spring loaded, and it's controlled by the ignition. So the key switch, when they turn that truck on, pops that plug out. So we've been, mission critical Purkeys and mission critical electronics has been doing this for quite some time. But now we're moving it into same technology. We're moving it into the heavy duty trucking market, and have learned a lot over the last few years on how to improve it and just make it better overall and work for all fleets. So I'm going to kind of go into, we kind of put together a checklist, some things you need to know, before just diving into this. We kind of sprinkled a little bit of this along the presentation, but first thing you need to know is what kind of voltage do you have? What does your grid currently have? So you got to know that. That was my first experience. The customer ordered a certain, I believe it was a 480 volt system. I get there like we always do. We're on site to make sure everything runs smoothly. Find out it's 208 volts. So we had to totally regroup. So that's the first thing, is know what your voltage is. Where are you staging all your trailers? Are you in a yard? You got trailers back to back, out in a parking lot. So that's really important. For one, you got to get that infrastructure out there, and then just setting up pedestals for plugging in. Upgrade needs. Is the grid going to be able to handle what you're about to throw at it? So working with coordinating with your facility or your utilities is key. Safety department, you want to keep them heavily involved. You really kind of go through, all the safety aspects of it. We tried to really, with this SAFEX product, we tried to make that easy by providing all the safety features.
We've actually reached out to safety departments because this is such a no-brainer for safety officers.
Exactly.
So I know we've even done some conferences, the safety conferences, because hey, look, this is, you're putting your drivers at risk. This is going to help with that. So the safety officers are going to absolutely love us, or love you for bringing this to it.
And logistics of the installation, I think that goes along with anything you're adding to a fleet, but just good communication and planning ahead of time. These 5 things are really going to help you. So hopefully you enjoyed the webinar on our SAFEX product. Haven't looked to see if there's any questions, but please submit your questions. We'll take a minute or so here to answer any.
What do you got? We'll answer them for you. We'll tell you right.
And if you come up with a question later, please feel free to reach out to us. You can do it via our website. Our Bob and I's information's available to you. Happy to help in any way we can.
Surely.
But before you jump off the webinar, please stick around for a brief survey at the end. If there are any topics, we're always looking for good topics. We do webinars every month. So if there's a topic that you're interested in, submit that. We need ideas. We don't want to talk about the same old stuff every time. All right. You seen any questions come in, Bob?
No, we must have covered everything perfectly. Left no room for question.
Okay, well, thanks everybody again. Stick around for the survey, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you again, guys.